Yes. Good afternoon, good afternoon. It's Wednesday lunchtime and we are here to spend an hour with you, or a few minutes.
Oh, you have high expectations.
My name is Jennifer Tom and I'm with my friend
Darlene Rampo.
But remember the days we used to drink coffee, now we're drinking water because it's noon, but we can still cheers. We are so grateful to be here today because this month has just been so powerful and we are talking about the power of courage. And today it's all about the courage to find the tools that work. Yes. And we're excited for two things. We have a guest speaker and we want to share about the short-term energy relieving behaviors that we all have. So I'll let Darlene talk more about it, about those things, and then I have a story for everybody. As always.
It's always. So again, when we have a loss or when we are trying to work through things, we've been taught or we've often learned ways to cope. And some of those ways can be exercise, some of those ways can be eating, anything that just relieves the pressure. So when we have a loss, there's emotional energy and it gets stored and we need to release it. And so one of the ways we do that is with short-term energy releasing behaviors. So those are, we call them STIRBs, and those are the things that just let that energy go. But the problem with them is that it's only short-term and it doesn't actually help us deal with our loss. It just helps us distract or avoid having the feelings that we need to work through. So
we are here to talk about that. And before we go any further, please invite your friends. Please spend your lunch hour with us because we have some amazing ideas. Please remember, Grief Talk, it's all about lessons learned through life and loss. And Darlene, nowadays we forget, I love quotes. So we're going to share, I think we have a quote for the day, but also while we are getting our quote up, please, if you have a friend out, please share this link. Share with a friend. Invite someone for a few minutes of lunch where we share lessons learned through life and loss.
Okay, we'll just share video. Oops.
I love technology. So good.
Nope.
Okay. There. So this is what we're talking about. Please give us a thumbs up if you are out there watching. So what are the short-term energy relieving behaviors? As Darlene shared, sometimes or most times when we go through change or loss, we tend to do things that to just numb the pain or to feel better for temporary, right? So for example, drinking. Maybe drinking a little too much, sleeping, eating, excessive exercise, too much sex, if it's such a thing, drugs, gambling, smoking, and the list goes on. So please share with us what are the things that we'll put our list back just for another minute. What are the things that you do to just feel good temporary? What are your short-term energy relieving behaviors? I have to share. Please remember, as we share this, we're not saying the short-term relieving behaviors are bad all the time. It's when we use them to distract us from the pain. Darlene, do you want to put that list back for a minute? Oh, it's okay. because it's so good for us to understand. Please, could you share with us what are yours? I think it's down. I just wanted to share my sister. I did not realize, this is a story I'm gonna share. Every time she was going through something, either loss or when she felt down, like you feel like you're having a cloudy day or you've had a loss, she would tell me, I want to feel pain. And I did not realize at the time that was her short-term energy relieving behavior, because she was feeling bad about this loss or change in her life. She needed to feel pain to feel better or to distract herself. So the question, to get that release. So what's yours? Right? What's yours? Sometimes we keep too busy. We keep too busy so that we don't deal with the pain. Sometimes we want to feel the pain and add more pain. Sometimes we go shopping to just distract ourselves. So we are not saying these are bad things, but when we do them to numb the pain, then they become bad. So what is your short-term energy relieving behavior? Darlene, do you have one you want to share?
One, I have a few, but I think my main one is keeping busy. So it's always having something planned, and as long as I can keep busy, I don't have to think, so I can or actually process some of my feelings. So I usually just keep busy, having something.
Thank you, Darlene. That's amazing. So that was our nugget for today. And the question is, what is yours? We all have one. I remember when I went through loss and there was events in my life, I had a little too much wine. Because every time I said, oh, I feel sad, I better just have a glass of wine. And I did that. And later, I learned that was my relieving. So what's yours? And so before we go any further, and I don't want to take all the time because our guest is waiting patiently, our friend Sarah is so courageous to join us today. And remember, our theme is all about courage today, this month, and Sarah will be sharing some of the courageous things she's done in life. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi. I'm not feeling too courageous. But I do know my short-term, what do you call it? Energy release?
Yes.
Whatever. Well, eating is one of them. But it reminded me in high school, I used to bite my fingers to the quick. And I'd walk around and have like sore fingers and try to play piano with terribly sore fingers. So that's done. But yeah, that just reminded me of that.
Oh, Sarah, thank you for sharing that. I didn't think of the fingernails. Whoa, that's another good one. And as kids, sometimes we see them do that, and that's their way to cope. Yeah. Okay. All right, Sarah, welcome.
Well, thank you so much. So this is out of my comfort zone, but we shall proceed. Jen gave me a couple of questions to kind of respond to, and so I'm just going to go through those questions, and Jen, interrupt me or ask questions or whatever. If you want me to stop or elaborate or hurry up or be quiet, that would be fine. Okay. Okay. So her first question was, why is it important to have courage? And I was thinking, especially partly because of living in a time of a pandemic, that it's hard some days to just get out of bed and face the day. And I don't deal with depression on a regular basis, but I can see how sometimes we need courage just to get out of bed. And then the next step that we need courage for is we have to have a vision. And it has to be something beyond ourselves to keep us going and to energize us. But it takes courage and determination and passion to go through and to carry through the vision and your dreams and to try to follow those things that you want to do rather than just existing. And I guess the downside is if you do not get out of bed, if you do not have a vision, your world shrinks and gets smaller and smaller. And especially in the pandemic, when a lot of people's worlds have already shrunk, we need to do things that expand our world and challenge us. So to me, that takes courage to seek that and to carry through with our plans. The other thing I thought about is that courage means it helps us to have integrity. And I think of something that Dallas Willard, the Christian philosopher, he talked about this need for ourselves, our mind, soul, and spirit to all be integrated. And spirit can be very healthy. If your soul isn't, then it's not fully integrated with the rest of you, and it's you're off balance. Or some other parts could be very healthy. Your body could not be healthy, but the other two are. We need courage to be integrated. And part of that is we have to find courage to figure out who we are and then to become that person, to live to our fullest and be the best person we can be, but aligning all of our parts of ourself to be the best person that we can be. So that takes courage. And that also takes courage because you have to be true to yourself. And I know that if I say something or do something that I feel is not, it shows I do not have integrity, then I'm not aligned. And I need courage to do things that are true to who I am and to be at peace with who I am. How am I doing so far?
You're doing amazing. I love, again, those three points. Recap, vision. Right. You need courage to get out of bed and to have a vision. That was amazing. We all need something outside of ourselves to get out and to have courage to do. And I like the integration, like being the whole person. Wasn't that amazing? That we need courage in all of those areas to be who you've called, who we're called to be, right? That's amazing.
So good. So keep going. Oh, yes. I love it.
Okay.
What do you have first?
The second question was, what gives a person courage? And I thought about that, and I thought, well, the easy answer is faith. Faith in God gives me courage, but I know that's not always the way my faith works. And I thought, one way that I get courage is by watching other people do courageous things. And I had a couple of examples of that. I remember being at a ladies' conference or something somewhere, and there was a speaker who came into the room, and within the conference, most people knew of about a very delicate situation that was awkward and hard and sad. And the speaker, rather than skirting around it, did not address it directly, but very kindly and compassionately addressed the audience as a whole, saying something to the effect of, if you're in a hot spot right now, then we love you and we're with you. And I just thought, rather than addressing it head on or rather than avoiding it, she had courage, I thought, in the way that she addressed it very kindly and lovingly. So that was one thing. A couple of years ago, I watched my 70-year-old mother-in-law jump out of an airplane and parachute down to the ground. And to me, that took a lot of courage. Not that I'm ever going to do the same, but if she can do that, then I thought, surely I can borrow some of her courage when I get in an airplane, because my default emotion is terror. But I think, no, I can get on an airplane and I can handle that. And I'm very thankful that I do not go into the plane knowing that I'm going to be jumping out with a parachute. So watching that was very, life-changing for me. And then I have friends like Darlene, who goes back to university as a mature student, and my friend like Jen, who faces death and dying and people who are in the midst of grief every day in her business. And watching their courage encourages me. So that's the answer to that question. I also find that another thing that I do is if I take little steps of courage, baby steps, then it's like a muscle. It grows that courage muscle. And it gets easier to take bigger steps next time. So I need to take little steps with courage. And then finally, I guess it's good for me to imagine being in that position and going, what I do and what would I like to do? What is the response that I might have? And what is the response that I would actually like to have? And to kind of mentally prepare for being in a situation where I would not feel courageous. And then finally, it seems off, but coming to terms with my own mortality, it actually helps this. When you ponder your own death, you realize that your life is not, you're not going to be here forever. And it kind of gives a perspective on your life that I'm hoping will give me courage in situations where perhaps my life is threatened or my life is shortened or whatever. And it's a really strange truth, but I do embrace that. Yeah. And it helps me to have courage, which is kind of weird and warped.
I love that. I'm just going to comment. I just want to share that one thing that caught my attention was to grow your courage muscle.
Yes.
That was great. About how, right, when we take those small steps and build that courage doesn't come just out of nowhere, right? It's a step-by-step in our life, right? As we build, we grow our courage. I just love that one.
Yes. Sara, so good.
Thank you. All right. So the third question was, what does courage mean to you? And so I looked in the dictionary and I like the definition: the ability to do something that frightens you, or bravery or strength in the face of pain or grief. And so I used to think being courageous meant you're not afraid, you're not scared, but it actually means that I might be scared, but I still need to do an action. So it's acting in spite of your fear. Even though I am afraid, I can act in spite of that. And the key word that courage comes from is corps, or cœur, corps in Latin and cœur in French, and it means of the heart. So Brené Brown takes this to a whole new level, and she talks about wholeheartedness, which is kind of similar to what Dallas Willard said about living with integrity, with all of your parts of your person aligned. But she says that it means kind of being vulnerable, which is weird because you need to be vulnerable to face who you actually are. And that takes courage too. So I think about that. And I also think that courage is really closely tied to hope. If you don't have hope for something, why bother mustering up the courage to work in the direction of it? So coming back to visions and plans and becoming that person, if you don't have hope, it's very difficult to have courage to work in the direction toward it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead.
No, that was great. I love that, acting in spite of fear, right? Courage is not the absence of fear. It's acting when we are fearful about things.
Yeah.
That's so good. Yeah.
Okay, good. And then Jen asked me to share a couple of personal stories on courage in my life. And this is where, when she asked me to do this, I thought, I don't have any courage. And my dear husband pointed out that actually I'm quite courageous in some ways. And he reminded me of some, and then I came up with some of my own. So I'm going to quickly go through some situations in my life where I had courage, even though I was terrified. We lived in Guatemala and Bangladesh, 2 third world countries. That took courage. And this summer, I hiked a 20 kilometer to the Crypt Lake, which was grueling and exhausting and terrifying. And I was so nervous about doing it, but I decided to at least try it, and I did, so I'm very happy about that. That's what my husband reminded me of. And then I thought of some of my own ones. Last year, I took the plunge and decided to upgrade to do my grade 10 Royal Conservatory piano exam, the practical exam. And I had done my grade 9 over 30 years ago. 40 years ago, pardon me. Anyway, so it was a big gap and it was very, very scary, but I did it. When we lived in Guatemala, I climbed a live volcano. And then I think, well, maybe that was more stupid than courageous, but it was interesting. And then every time I fly, remember my mother-in-law, whenever I fly, again, I'm just thankful that I'm not going on with the intention of jumping out. I think anyone who gets married has courage. You make these promises, you know, knowing this person sort of, and you have no guarantees for any outcome, except that the person will stay with you forever, hopefully. So marriage, and then there's parenting. You have kids, that's a great leap of courage, having kids and raising kids. So yeah. And then I guess more on a personal front, facing the fact that I have very little control of my life that takes courage for me. And that was a big hurdle to overcome. But when I overcame it, it was easier to accept things. So yeah, there are some things in life we can't control. And when you face it, even though it's fearful, it's easier to get on with life. I also find it hard to give apologies and to acknowledge mistakes and to, you know, to let my faults and my shortcomings show. So when I have to do that, that is a small act of courage on my part. And then just a couple more. I try deliberately to be thankful when things go wrong and to look for one little thing when something's thrown a monkey wrench into my day, to look for one little thing to go, well, at least, you know, I'm not sick. I can get around. I have food, and to be thankful in spite of whatever little hardship or big hardship comes along. And it also takes courage to set boundaries in relationships, and that's something that I have had to work on. So the final one is kind of the biggie, and this is the one that has to do with grief. When shortly after we came back from Bangladesh, our 6-year-old daughter, Rachel, got a very rare autoimmune disease called HLH. And she was sick for over 6.5 months. And watching her suffer and eventually die, again, it didn't feel like I was courageous, but it took courage. And when I think of the things that we had to do just to carry on in that time, we had to ride the train in Edmonton 45 minutes to the hospital every day for 3.5 months. We would go into her room, not knowing what the prognosis was, not knowing what her evening was like, what to expect, seeing her in intense pain day after day after day, listening to her questions about life, and then hearing these diagnoses that were just myriad, and submitting her for more tests and tests and tests that were awful to go through, and way too many tests and biopsies and brain surgeries that she had to go through. And then watching her life slowly ebb away. Again, I did not feel courageous in that moment, but I look back, and part of being courageous is facing things and being present. And that's all I could do. All I could do was and surrender a lot of things, but there was so much out of control. So that even though I felt helpless, I guess it was an act of courage, but there also was no other choice. And my suffering was really small compared to hers, obviously. She was the one that had courage to just stay in that hospital bed. And again, her courage fed my courage, and her spirit and her attitude throughout was amazing. And then after she passed away, that was in 1997, boy, it was like a decision for me to carry on with life and courage, but I did not feel like carrying on with life. I just felt like giving up. And yeah, grief is really, really hard, and it touches every area of your life. And I also took steps. I had the courage to see a counselor who really, really helped me come to terms with her death. and with other stuff about Bangladesh. Yeah, that was a hard time. And again, I did not feel courageous, but I felt like I knew what I had to do and I had to go through it. And I did. And I guess the only reason I'm able to talk about this, with some freedom and hope is that I really do believe that there is hope beyond the grave. And if I did not have that hope, I don't know where I would be, because I guess it does come down to faith. I said, I don't know how it's very, very small, but it does come down to faith. And if I did not have that hope, I would feel like my life was not worth living. But instead, I want to look ahead, and I want to have those visions and dreams and carry on and do things that are going to propel me forward, rather than shrinking my world and shrinking my life. And so one other thought, I was thinking about Isaiah 40 verse 31. I just like to read it. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. And for me, sometimes courage is not soaring like eagles. Sometimes it's putting one foot in front of the other and walking. And that's what we're called to do. And I guess I would encourage everyone listening and watching to look for small and large ways that you can be courageous in the face of your fears and your difficulties and things that life throws at you that are unpleasant and unexpected. And I hope that I will do the same. And that's the end.
Thank you for the courage of sharing your stories. That was amazing.
You're welcome.
Sarah, thank you. I am speechless, but all I'm going to say, how you shared that you watching other people do courageous things? We're here watching you do something very courageous by you sharing your story with us about Rachel. We cannot even imagine how the process you went through. And I just have to share that Sarah did an amazing album for Rachel's life and talk about courage. That's what we're talking about. That's what I see, courage. And when you said watching others, Sarah, we're watching you. You're one of those. And so thank you so much for sharing. That is huge. And I'm just, What do you think, darling?
I think I'm speechless, but just when you hear people's stories, when you hear people sharing, having the courage to share and to go on with life and to do all the things that you've done, Sarah, to climb mountains, to do amazing things, and just to be a friend to people. Like, that is so courageous. And you are. When you share your story, you encourage other people, and you make us courageous too.
Yes. Yeah, we really appreciate it. Sorry, go ahead.
You both continue to inspire me. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for those who are watching and those who are going to watch later. We just want to say thank you for joining us. And every time, I believe when we share stories, when we share our life events, that creates healing. You never know whose life you're going to touch. So if you're out there and you want to be courageous
and
share, please join us. Join our podcast, join our group, email us, and we want to connect with you. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you for our friends out there. Until next Wednesday, please be courageous, as Sarah said, and find something good. Oh, I can't even
work your muscle,
right?
Work your courage muscle. Yes,
I love what she said. Like, despite everything in a life event, just find one thing that's good, and that's courage.
Yes. Yeah,
right?
And that's your courage muscle.
That's your courage muscle. I love it.
That's amazing.
Please, friends, connect with us, and we'll see you next week.